you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Dominikem Marxerem. I'm the Deputy Head of Mission of the Principality of Liechtenstein here in Vienna. We are a bilateral embassy accredited both to Austria and also from here in Vienna to the Czech Republic. And we are also Liechtenstein's permanent representation to the OSCE and to the UN in Vienna. So these are our four responsibilities. Before coming to Vienna, I was posted in Brussels, working there at our mission to the European Union and to Belgium as an embassy there. And prior to that, I was in Vaduz in the Office for Foreign Affairs. I was also Deputy Permanent Representative to the Council of Europe in Strasbourg. So those were my postings before coming here. And I would like to welcome you. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you in the first place for choosing Liechtenstein as the embassy to visit as part of your project this year. We're very happy that you came all the way from Prague to do this today. And of course there are good reasons why there is much to talk about when it comes to relations between Liechtenstein and the Czech Republic. Of course, that common history goes back a long time, roughly 800 years in terms of the relationship between the Liechtenstein family and today's Czech Republic. And this relationship also covers a broad range of issues. As you might know, we have resumed diplomatic relations in 29, so last year was 15 years of that. As part of that development, there was a joint commission of historians that has been working on history and the approach that both sides have been taking on that. And there is a lot of cooperation in other fields also, maybe interesting for you. Since 2004 there have been more than 100 students from the Czech Republic in Liechtenstein at our university. There is cooperation in international organizations, of course. There is also the so-called EEA grants, which is a fund through which Norway, Liechtenstein and Iceland contribute to cohesion in the Czech Republic, where there are projects that are taking place. So there's a very wide range of issues that is covered by this relationship, and we're happy that you're here, and we'll be talking about that and also some other elements. Yeah.
So a following question, why did you decide to enter diplomatic services?
Yes, I mean initially it was basically a consequence of my choice of topic at university. I was always interested in history, politics, law. I studied political science and international relations, so I had an academic interest in international relations and organizations and diplomacy. And during that period, I also did some internships. So I was actually here in Vienna at one point, a bit more than 20 years ago as an intern, and then later on also in other places, and this gave me a better impression as to what everyday's work as a diplomat means, and it also opened my eyes a little bit further to what you can do as a young diplomat in the Liechtenstein diplomatic service. So it was a combination of those academic, theoretical aspects and also the practical experience that at that stage I was able to gain. And of course the motivation was simply also the fact that international relations and foreign policy are important for a country like Liechtenstein, where not only relations with our neighbors but also our integration in Europe and more generally in the world, so to speak, also in international organizations. The multilateral dimension is something very important for us, and I have always been keen on discovering more about that, contributing to that, and maybe one last aspect I can mention is sports. I was when I was younger, I was playing table tennis. I was also representing Liechtenstein at the international level in that capacity. And this was more or less when I was at your age or maybe a little bit older. This also gave me the opportunity to go to events like World and European Championships and opened my eyes to international relations, different cultures, meeting people from different countries. So in a way, this also contributed to my interest and fascination for international affairs.
How does your work for the United Nations here in Vienna differs from the one you did for the United Nations in New York?
Well, first of all, two very different periods in terms of stages in my career. When I was in New York working at our permanent mission to the UN, I was a junior advisor there. I had just finished university. The focus there at the time was mainly on human rights issues. There were some developments at that time, like the finalization of the International Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I was following the so-called Third Committee of the General Assembly, which is the committee dealing with human rights issues. And through that work, I, of course, got a good insight into those issues, but also more generally into how the UN and the General Assembly and the New York dimension of the UN works, which was very helpful afterwards for my work, both in Capital and then also in Strasbourg and in Brussels, and of course also still for today here, because here in Vienna now we have, as one of those four responsibilities of our mission, we have the UN, and now I'm covering those issues as Deputy Permanent Representative here. The focus here in Vienna is compared to New York on quite specific, sometimes also technical issues. From Liechtenstein's perspective, the two most important organizations that we are following here is UNODC, so the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and also the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA. So those are the main fields that we cover. On the UNODC side, we have quite a lot of support also from our colleagues in Vaduz. So we have people in our Office for Foreign Affairs and sometimes in line ministries and offices back home that come to conferences that cover those, and we basically accompany and support them in what they are doing. On other issues such as the IAEA, the lead is more with us here in Vienna, so we do most of the work ourselves, and I can maybe give you two examples. Recently, a couple of years ago, we have been co-chairing together with Germany the so-called Western European Group in the IAEA, which is essentially about who from that group gets a seat on the IAEA Board of Governors. So it's quite an important political issue to deal with. And right now, for the first half of this year, we are chairing the Western European and Other States group in the IAEA. At the institutional level, we're therefore also trying to make our contribution to the work here. And what is relevant for us is, of course, also that there is some overlap between what the UN is doing here with what we do in the OSCE. So that's in a way an advantage also of covering, as we say here in Vienna, both sides of the Danube. So we're responsible for the UN, but also for the OSCE, and some of these issues, they come up in both fora. So, for example, nuclear security and the situation in Ukraine is something that is discussed at the OSCE, but is also discussed at the IAEA, of course, from the perspective of the different mandates of these organizations. So I hope this answers your question.
So could you please briefly introduce the OSCE and the goals of your mission?
Yes, the OSCE, and we are now in a very interesting year for the OSCE also because it's the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act, so we're speaking of a so-called Helsinki plus 50 process because the conference at the time in Helsinki took place in 1975. The OSCE is the biggest regional security organization. It has 57 participating states. And what is special about it, also compared to other security organizations such as NATO, for example, is that it has a very comprehensive approach to security. It has those so-called three dimensions, which is the politico-military part, the environmental and economic part, and also the so-called human dimension. So it's not just security in terms of hard power, military, who has how many tanks and so on, but it's a more comprehensive view on security also from a preventive perspective. So that's a unique feature of the OSCE, and that also means that it has important roles in terms of the autonomous institutions that the OSCE has, working mainly on human rights issues from different perspectives. It has so-called field offices in different countries, so they are there also on the ground doing projects in certain participating states. And for us as Liechtenstein, because you asked about the role of our mission and our goals, the OSCE is the only organization dealing with European security where we are full members. We are not in NATO. We're not in the EU, and the UN, of course, also covers security aspects, but we are, for example, not in the Security Council. And therefore, the OSCE is an important organization for us where we have access to this information, where we can also use the OSCE as a platform for our own initiatives, where you have communication channels. Every Thursday, for example, the Permanent Council meets at ambassadorial level, and if you have something to share with others, you make a statement and 56 others will directly hear it. So this is a very efficient way also of communicating. And of course, what I said about this comprehensive concept of security that the organization has, this is something that is also very relevant for us. Because as a country with no military force, security has a wide meaning in the sense that human rights, the respect for for international law are also very important for us, because if that is not the case also at the international level, then our life in international affairs becomes much more difficult. So in that sense, this concept behind the OSCE speaks very well also to our national situation, and we of course try to play an active part in this. Historically speaking, the OSCE and the CSE process, how it was called at the beginning when it was still a conference, was also an important part of the development of our foreign policy, because this was at the time probably the first process in that sense where Liechtenstein actively participated, and the experiences that we made back then in the 70s and later 80s, they were very valuable also for other integration steps like the Council of Europe membership, the membership in the United Nations, or our membership in the European Economic Area. So it's currently very relevant, of course, now with Russian aggression against Ukraine for 3 years now, good 3 years. That has been the main focus also of this organization, but also looking back in terms of the development of this organization, it's always been something that we have followed closely and that has been important for us.
Is there some cooperation between Czech Republic and Liechtenstein in terms of OSCE, sorry?
Yes, of course. We have good relations with the Czech colleagues here. Most of the cooperation that we have directly with them is actually channeled through the European Union. because Czech Republic, as member of the European Union, in many cases is represented by the delegation of the European Union when they speak as EU in those fora, and we have regular dialogues also with the European Union. But of course we also have direct contact with the Czech colleagues here, not only in the OSCE but also when it comes to the UN, the other side of the river, where the Czech ambassador, for example, had active roles recently, inter alia as chair of the IEA Board of Governors 1 or 2 years ago. And looking at it from a more historical perspective, the OSCE has also been a platform where bilateral issues between Liechtenstein and the Czech Republic have been raised. As you might be aware, there are still these open questions when it comes to property rights and the enjoyment of those rights in the Czech Republic by Liechtenstein citizens. And back in the 1990s, there was also a regular occasion, so to speak, namely the EEF, the Economic and Environmental Forum of the OSCE in Prague, where this issue has also been brought up by Liechtenstein to raise awareness of the situation, that Liechtenstein citizens were not enjoying their full property rights in the Czech Republic. This is, of course, as you probably know, related to the confiscation of properties under the Beneš decrees, and until today this remains an open question in our bilateral relations. There is currently an interstate application, a case at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg on this issue, but our approach here and generally, of course, is to work well together with the Czech Republic on all bilateral and multilateral matters where that is possible, where we also share the same values and interests. Of course, there has been a big change when it comes to the Czech Republic in terms of the period before '89 and then afterwards, where in a way now we are very much on the same side when it comes to approaches to human rights and democracy and the rule of law. So in that sense, we share a lot of common perspectives on important issues today, for example on Ukraine, where both countries have been strong proponents on accountability, for example, just to name one element. But more broadly, there is good cooperation. Yes.
What activities do you most often encounter here?
Well, I mean, it's a combination of various activities, and that comes in a way with different aspects that feature in diplomacy, but also to some extent with this special constellation that we have here in Vienna, where we are on the one hand a bilateral embassy and on the other hand a representation to those international organizations. So there is no typical day, so to speak, here. It's always a combination of meetings in international organizations, sometimes conferences at political level or at expert level, meetings, informal or more formal, since COVID also more often online than before, lunches, dinners, receptions where you discuss things informally, a lot of time frankly also simply in the office, writing emails and speaking to people on the phone or these days via video conference. So this cliche, of course, of diplomats that spend their whole day at receptions and lunches is not really adequate. So if that's what you're looking for in terms of why to join the Foreign Service, I would recommend you look into it a little bit further. But yes, it's a wide range of activities that corresponds to the different aspects of our work. And that is also frankly from my perspective anyway, what makes the job interesting, because you have all these different aspects.
So what has been the most interesting experience in your career so far?
Not difficult to pinpoint one. I would say that the most interesting part of my work has always been that it combines a lot of different elements that I'm interested in, that I find fascinating, and some of it is maybe more relevant even in the Liechtenstein Foreign Service than it would be in others, in the sense that we all have to have the ability to deal with multiple issues at the same time. There are limits to the extent that we can specialize on certain things, because we cover a lot of different ground, and this forces you to be also mentally flexible. You have to maybe on one day jump from an OSCE question to a bilateral to a UN, and you do all of this together. And for me this is fascinating to do here in Vienna, especially interesting because of this combination of dossiers that we have. If I had to name one phase or experience that in that sense stands out as particularly interesting, I would maybe mention my year with the Austrian OSCE chairmanship in 2017. I was seconded to the Austrian chair to support their chairmanship team, and this was a very unique opportunity for me at the time to be part of that team and contribute to that chairmanship. And of course it was also very helpful in terms of substance, but also contacts for the work that I have been doing afterwards here at our delegation. So if you ask me one example, then it will probably be that, but I could also mention others, of course.
So what would you recommend to young people who desire to enter diplomatic services?
Yes, I mean, I think broadly speaking, it's good to also follow your interests. I think you should combine a theoretical and academic approach to things with practical experience. So if you are interested in international relations in the first place, maybe from a school or university perspective, try to get hands-on practical experience as soon as you can. Do those internships to see how these theoretical things actually happen in practice, and whether your vision of what the job might be like actually corresponds to the reality. And then you also need to look at your own country, in the sense that foreign services in different countries can be quite different, often related to the size of a country also, and then see how that works, what the role that you could have at the beginning or later in that service, how that corresponds to your expectations, if that is something that you see yourself doing, or whether, for example, your interest in international affairs is there, but it may not necessarily for diplomacy in terms of foreign service. Could well be that you would then prefer working for an international organization, or for a civil society organization, or even for the private sector. There are so many international elements out there that diplomacy, of course, is not the only thing that you can do if you're interested in this subject. But I think combining theoretical knowledge and interest, conceptual thinking with practical experience, I think is an advice that I would give. Do that as early as you can, and then take it from there. See if you like it. I tend to believe that people are best at doing those things that they are most interested in, because then the interest and the passion comes with it, and normally people do best when that's the case.
Have you ever visited Czech Republic regarding your work?
Yes, of course. I mean, we as a bilateral embassy are based here in Vienna, but both the ambassador and sometimes myself, of course, we also go to the Czech Republic for meetings, be it in Prague or in other parts of the country. So yes, we do that, and we try to maintain those contacts as much as we can. Of course, the starting point is a little bit different when you are not permanently in Prague, but on the other hand, what we are doing from here as a non-resident embassy is quite a unique constellation in our system, because the Czech Republic is the only country where we have such a non-resident embassy. We have a non-resident ambassador to the Holy See in addition, but all other embassies that we have are actually in the country. So the fact that we are based here in Vienna and that we do maintain these relationships is also a feature of the close and long common history and relationship that I described earlier.
Okay, so that's all of the questions. That's it.
Thank you very much.
We thank you.